Hello, Jen here with Moose Mushrooms and Mud Wildcraft. Today I'll be demonstrating how to make Ponderosa Pine Needle earrings in this teardrop hoop fashion as we see here. Let me get a little closer look for you guys, if I can pick them up. So here they are. I have a little charm in them. You don't have to put a charm in them, but I think it looks nice. It's up to you. You can use feather charm, no charm, different charms. It's really up to you actually. So this one came off, but yes, this is what I will be demonstrating on how to make today. I'm just going to be making the one here just because, well, I only need to demonstrate one, and you just basically, if you were to make this, you would just repeat the process. So what you will need to make your pine needle hoop earring, you'll need some needle nose pliers. I like to work with 2. You don't need to, but I like to work with 2, and maybe I will use 1, maybe I just will use 2, I don't know yet. You'll need a needle that's capable of threading this type of what's it called again, embroidery thread. This embroidery thread is actually waxed because the wax help grip the pine needles on to the hoop. You don't have to use waxed embroidery thread, but I find it's less slippery to work with and it grips better. And you don't have to use black. You can use pretty much any color you want. So, and then I have a charm, a shepherd's hook, and an O-ring. I have this metal hoop here. I have a little pair of scissors, and I like the scissors with these pointy tips. And then I have a plastic straw here that I've cut down to, this is about just a little bit over 1 inch. And then I have 5 sets of Ponderosa pine needles that have already been moistened and soaking in water and then taken out and just kind of set to dry for a few hours. So they're not soaking wet, and they're slightly, but they're not dry either, so they're actually quite pliable still. Okay, so they're not breaking, so they still have some dampness to them. Now if you're in my class and not watching this, perhaps say just as general information, if you're one of my classes, you'll probably actually have pine needles that have been treated with vegetable glycerin, and that way they kind of stay pliable no matter what. But in this today, I'm just working with moist, barely moist Ponderosa pine needles, and they're about 5 inches long. All right, so let's start. I'm just actually going to push some of this stuff away. The first thing that you're going to actually do is wrap your hoop with your embroidery thread. So I'm actually going to just zoom this in a little bit. Okay, so my embroidery thread is about 40 inches long, maybe 42 is a good length as well, but you want, I don't know, at 40 inches to 42 inches. If you have a little extra, that's okay. It's important to be able to work with more than not enough, because if you don't work with enough, you're going to be rewrapping your whole earring. So your first step is we're just going to be tying on your embroidery thread to the hoop. Well, if I can tie it on. I knew that didn't quite feel right. Okay. Make sure you do a knot, because if this knot comes undone, or if your string comes undone, you're going to have to rewrap the whole thing. So make sure that knot is on tight. You might get a little bit of wax buildup on the string. Don't worry about that. You can always rub it off after, or even take a hair dryer at the end and do a light warm blow dry. Okay, we're going to cut that off. Oh, I got my big scissors here. These are actually sharper than my pointy scissors, but my pointy scissors are great for finishing the end, and you'll see why. Okay, so now it's tight on there, and basically we just begin wrapping. We're gonna wrap this whole metal hoop. I find that the teardrop hoop works the best for these Ponderosa Pine earrings. I've tried making circular hoops, but there's more work involved to finish the tops, and it can be actually quite tedious. But these small teardrop hoops are very, very nice. I do have some larger teardrop hoops that I work with, but I definitely prefer these ones. Okay, so as you're wrapping, push your embroidery thread up. Okay, you're gonna want to make it tight. Oops, sorry, I keep getting out of screen. So pull it, push it up, and just keep wrapping. We're going to wrap this whole hoop, and we're going to keep pushing along the way to make these wraps nice and tight and snug with each other. Okay, we have finished wrapping our metal hoop. Now we can just set it down and just leave it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be working with our pine needles next. So we're going to get our straw and we're going to get our needles, and we're going to load this straw. So we're actually slipping these pine needles inside the straw, all 5 sets. Now, if you get a lot of knobs, on these, you might actually have to use your fingernail and kind of pinch them off. Not really pinch, I'm just kind of sliding it off, right? So they're actually still held together, and then I can just slip it through. Gives us some more room to work with this narrow straw. I'm sure you could probably work with a piece of paper straw. Basically what you're needing is a small tube the size of a straw. If your needles are not slipping through very well, you might have to individually shove them up. But that was relatively easy. That's kind of what we're looking for. So now we have loaded the straw, and then you can just basically push it up and down, right? So now we're going to push them up a little closer to the top. This part is going to be cut off. But for now, what we want to do is we're going to line it up with our, hoop. So I want to give I don't want too much room up here, just enough to work with. So I should push that down a little bit. Maybe push it up. Okay. Probably somewhere around there. Because we will be cutting off the knobs. Just remember that. So I'm going to be holding this here. And I'm going to actually wrap twice. Okay, so you can see how I wrapped this string around the group of pine needles twice. And now we're going to continue down the hoop. So what I'm going to do is pull back this straw to reveal some more needles. And then I'm going to wrap again. I'm going to bring the wrap down. Okay. Now this loosened off a little bit, or spread a bit. That's okay, because this will actually be covered in the end. Okay, so you have to be holding this while you be working. So I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'm going to wrap again. You want relatively even wraps, okay? And you want to be making sure that you're twisting this or keeping it in line with your hoop. Pull again and wrap. Pull again and wrap. Pull again and wrap. If your needles start to break on the wrap, that means they haven't been moistened enough. Probably stop what you're doing and, reload a new, actually you might have to undo this all and put a new needle in. And you're basically doing this all the way around. Just making sure that they're pretty even overall, and that if it's starting to twist back, like if you're finding that your group of needles is going in behind, move them forward. If they're moving forward, then push them back. You just want them in line with this hoop in the middle here. Pay attention to that. And I am making these wraps really tight, actually. I'm pulling on them, making them tight. Not so tight that I'm squishing the needles. I do want this roundness. I don't want them so flat. But I do want to have them quite tight because the needles will finish drying in this position. And if your wraps are too loose, your thread will actually get loose. It will your thread will start moving all the way around. So you do want it tight, but not so tight that you're squishing the needles flat. Okay. And just keep in mind when you make your second earring, if you're doing like 10 or 12 wraps on one side around, you're going to probably have to do it on the same side, right? Okay, so I've come to the top now. There's really no more room, but I will be wrapping up here twice again to secure that top here. Okay, so basically this is what it should look like by the time you're done wrapping. You can make any adjustments along the way, spread them apart a bit more if you want. If you're not happy with your wrap, undo it, but pull your straw back at the same time. But this is kind of like the result you're looking for. So now you can hold on to your string and your groups of needles and pull off your straw. At this point, we're going to actually cut the top of our needles because we don't want to have this in our way. So I'm going to cut the tips off here, but not really close down to here. I want to leave some room to work with because we're not done wrapping the top. And if you wrap the top, you can actually pull these down a bit with the tightening of the wrap. And we don't want to have that happen and these top wraps get underneath the pull of the pine needles. I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll kind of see what I mean as we finish the wrap. So I will give myself some room to work with. So I'll just cut above and leave myself some room. Okay. If you make enough earrings, you'll find out what I mean by giving yourself some room to work with. You don't want to ever cut them too short at this stage. So now at this stage, we want to cross back and forth with our wraps to make a nice top here. And basically this is what we're doing, right? So here's the back side of this. Just going over and up and around, over, up and around. So I'll push back the charm here. So we create that nice top here. So you should be on top. If not, that's okay. Maybe you can just do another wrap or start wherever you are. But basically, you're just going to go, you're crisscrossing back and forth. And that's why it's important that your embroidery thread is long. I don't know if I mentioned it, but your embroidery thread should be at least like 40, 42 inches to give yourself room to work with. And then when I'm wrapping it back and forth, I'm just making sure they kind of go one underneath each other for that nice clean look. There's really no right or wrong here about how many wraps you want to do. But here, I don't know, I probably did about 6 wraps, and there's probably 5 or 6 on this side. I think that's enough. And whatever I do to this one, I want to do with the other one. I always want to make sure that the other one matches my other earring. Okay, so now you can see here that this is the knot, right? From when we started. So that means this is going to be the front. You have to twist it around. So this is going to be the front because there's no knot. Wait, well, maybe there is. Okay, well, the knot has, the knot has kind of spread. Basically, both sides are kind of showing the same thing. Yeah, sorry. Both sides are showing the same thing. So you have to determine what your front's going to be. I can keep this the front. Sorry. Okay. So if that's my front, I'm going to turn it around. And now I have to finish securing this loose end here. Okay, so once we have finished wrapping, you can take a look at both sides, just make sure that they're both kind of nice here. You can kind of see that this end has not as many wraps. So I'm going to wrap it one more time here. And then you have to decide which is going to be your front, which is going to be your back. Now normally it's where your knot has presented itself is going to be your back. But mine has, like, I can kind of see the knot here on both sides. So it kind of doesn't really make a difference at this point. So you kind of have to choose. I'm going to have this as the front. One of the reasons I'm going to choose this as the front, you can see my wrapped hoop here. And on the back, it's not as visible. It's somewhat visible. And that's probably me not making sure that I kept it properly inlined. And one of the reasons I'm probably not keeping it properly in line was because I'm trying to look at the camera and do this at the same time. So that's okay. Whatever I do to my next earring, I just have to make it the same. Okay, so I'm going to keep this as my front. So that means I have to secure this back side. So what I'm going to do is now take that needle, and it's quite the large eye opening, and I will be threading it in. This is where I might need a pair of sharp scissors to make a nice clean. Well, that certainly is not working. Wow. Okay, so I have my needle in here, and this is going to be my back side. So you want to put it up the threads. Your top wrap threads, pull it gently, and then I like to bring it down the back side as well. This will make sure that my wrap is secure, and I don't have to do another knot that shows. It makes a nice kind of clean look. See? And then you can just snip really, really close. It shouldn't actually be visible by the time you snip. So yeah, there's my back side. This is my front here. So now we can adjust this top here. We can clean up this top and make it look quite nice. I like to follow the angle of the teardrop to kind of keep extending it. So if my metal hoop is coming up this way, I'm going to cut the other side on the kind of that same angle. So it's just kind of continuation. And then this side you can see is coming up on this angle. I'm going to go across to the other group of needles. Try to keep it somewhat on the same angle as the other one. And this is where you want to make some, that's why you want to leave needles to work with. So now you can see that this one is actually quite a bit more flatter. So now I can just do a nice, try to do a nice simple adjustment on this side. Cut any broken off. Just keep in mind, whatever you do to this earring, you're going to have to try to anything, just keep in mind, anything that you do to this side of these earrings, the top, just keep in mind, whatever you do to this earring, how you trimmed the top, you're going to have to do on your other earring. Okay. So there's my finished top here. So now we can actually add our charm, our O-ring, and our shepherd's hook. This is where your needle nose pliers comes in handy. Actually, I'm going to talk about the shepherd's hook a little bit. I've twisted this opening to face the back of the shepherd's hook. Normally it's the other way, but I want my earrings to face this way and not this way. And it does play a difference once you add the O-ring. So I twisted this, but it's really your preference. Okay, we're going to take our O-ring. If it's not already opened, you're going to open it. Make sure that there's a good gap because you're going to have to get it threaded into that hole. If your O-ring is not coming through the hole very well, it could be that the back is blocked a bit by the string or the needles. Use your needle to go through the top of the hoop and make a way for the O-ring to go through. So if this is my front, I want to make sure my shepherd hook is going on the right way. So that's where I want my shepherd's hook. And then my charm I want to face front. So my charm is facing front, my shepherd's hook is facing back, and then I can close the O-ring. My O-ring was actually opened up almost too much. It was like split apart a little too much. It should be like when I squished this, my O-ring should be perfectly aligned. Okay, so my O-ring is in. If you're finding it hard to put your O-ring in, it's probably because your backside could be blocked with the string or the needles. So use your needle and push through the top here and make a way for that O-ring to go in. You're going to have your O-ring out. You're going to push this in and then make that opening, make a way for that O-ring, and then put your O-ring in. Okay, so now I want to take my shepherd's hook and I want to make sure it's facing the right way. So this is the back of the earring. So I'm going to put my shepherd's hook there. And then I want my charm to face forward. And there we go. Now I'm going to close that O-ring. A little bit tedious because sometimes your shepherd's hook or your charms want to fall out. Okay, well, that one was pretty good. Normally I would have used my secondary needle nose pliers for that, but I didn't have to. Okay, so you want to make sure your O-ring is completely closed and flush with itself, because if you don't, you're going to lose your shepherd's hook or your charm. So it's not wanting to, there's just a little bit of a gap. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. So there we go. Now we made our pine needle earring. It'll take about just over a night to actually dry the rest of these needles, and they will probably go a little bit of a lighter color. Like you kind of see that there's a slight lighter color. Now, if your needles have been treated with the vegetable glycerin, they'll probably kind of remain darkish like that. You can see the natural pine needles. That's probably the color that they're going to turn into. But that's kind of nice about the pine needles. Sometimes there's just a little bit of variation. They don't always dry like very, very light. Some of them dry light, some of them have like just variations of tones of beige and tans and browns. Well, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a happy wildcrafting. Thank you.